Well, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. I am from Demos, and for those 10 weeks, those 10 long weeks over the general election, we at Chasm, a part of Demos dedicated really to understanding social media, desperately tried to cover the rise of this new, ferocious, sometimes very rude, but certainly political battleground which had erupted. We saw 80% of MPs sometimes reluctantly dragged onto Twitter, about half of them regularly using Facebook as well, and thousands of more political hopefuls kind of using social media as a direct route between themselves and the electorate, and 160,000 tweets every month were pouring from these candidates, these aspirants, each trying to dominate that digital space and pitch and make their case. And then we also saw the kind of rise of this new kind of rolling, boiling digital commons, 400,000 tweets a week, 21 million Facebook interactions over those 10 weeks, flying back from the electorate to those politicians, and in more general finding each other to talk about the issues, the policies, the figures, the personalities at stake. And so, working primarily with the Sunday Times, but also with others, we at Demos were trying to cover all this, the main messages, the losers, the winners. But this kind of new political journalism, of course, is also a kind of data journalism. There was no way in which, without the help of these new automated and computational processes, we could at all swim in these new kind of muddy digital political waters. And that's exactly what we did. We set out to merrily build algorithms and machine learning techniques and visualization methodologies to really try and bring some sense, some desperate sense really, to what on earth was going on. So we did stuff like this. This was us with the Telegraph, gobbling in tweets as soon as they were appearing over the course of the leadership debate, probably the largest digital moment in British political history, as hundreds of thousands of people were second screening on Twitter, talking about the candidates and the arguments as they were happening on the screen. And you can see we built algorithms to essentially try and differentiate tweets into boos and cheers, a kind of bespoke, specialised sentiment analysis. Now, if you were logged onto the Telegraph at the time of the debate, you would have seen those lines moving up and down over the page as we were really trying to capture the kind of boos and jeers and catcalls and cheers sometimes of the digital arena as it reacted to what people were seeing. As those lines went up, it was people cheering for that candidate. You can see the yellow there, Nicola Sturgeon, did something I've never seen a politician on social media ever do before, which is actually get more cheers than boos on there. And then you've got those deep ploughing troughs for the purple line there, Mr Farage, especially during those two key moments on NHS tourism, as he was booed on by the studio audience, taken to task by Leanne Wood, if you remember, as well as receiving all those digital jeers. So that was one algorithm. Others like this, we were interested in knowing politics versus personality. We wanted to know how people were engaging with that debate on social media. So more algorithms, more bespoke natural language processing architectures, and then suddenly some kind of readout which tells us that most people were actually focusing on the personalities, whether they were prime ministerial, whether they were trustworthy, how they looked, how they sounded, how they were standing, rather than the policies and issues at stake. And then also the topics as well. I was desperately trying to uncover the kind of hidden topic on social media which the pollsters couldn't find. Depressingly, it was quite conventional. You can see there immigration, economy, and health NHS as being the three big issues on social media as it was offline. I always feel like a weatherman for this one. This was us putting 10 million tweets, the kind of Twitter's political galaxy, on a map for Newsnight. What essentially you're seeing there are every single person that sent a tweet about or to or from every MP. And we use the clustering techniques to essentially try to understand how information was flowing around this enormous political network. So the tiny little light node, sorry, it's hard for you to see, each of those tiny little dots is a person. And the nearer they are to the other tiny little dots, the more likely they were to retweet or mention or interact with that other person. You can see that when you actually interpret this massive galaxy, you can see that there are hardened partisan belts in there. You've got that strong light Labour constellation at the top. You've got a kind of media belt in the middle, kind of separating the parties. You've got the Tories and UKIP there. You've got a Scottish conversation hived off, almost completely separate from the mainstream British political conversation. You've got Team Galloway out there with a whole constituency of people that have otherwise nothing to do with British politics. And most surprising to me, Boris Johnson completely out there on his lonesome there. Can you see? Now, the Conservative Party actually retweeted Old Holborn, Britain's vilest troll, in the words of Daily Mail, more than they retweeted Boris Johnson during the campaign. Fascinating. I was always interested to see whether a whip was put out to not retweet Boris Johnson. So it was showing us kind of who was central and who wasn't. Pete Wishart, the most popular and SNP an MP from Scotland, was right in the heartland there in Scotland, and poor Mr Murphy there was right in the middle of the mainstream Labour conversation. Much fun to be had with that, and there's several places online, if you're interested, I'll tweet them out after this, where you can go to have a little explore and kind of sail around this galaxy yourself. And you can also see how messages were then spreading. So we were looking a lot at virals, those huge kind of sledgehammer messages, those hits, the ones which got thousands and thousands of retweets and views, and more views. And you can see, but they basically, the only one which achieved escape velocity was Douglas Carswell's 5-year-old asking everyone to play Hello Kitty World with her on her father's laptop. Every other viral didn't manage to achieve what Newsnight called escape velocity and get out of those partisan clusters. So that's the Labour cluster with a Labour viral ratcheting around in there like wildfire. Likewise, that's the Tory cluster. And that's Cameron's message really not escaping. Now I can see Hetan nervously shuffling. So 1 more minute. And this is what happens next. So this is digital electioneering. But really important to us now at Demos is actually not using social media just to gain political power, but also to wield it. I don't think that the politicians now should be left off the hook with all that innovation, those new ideas being thrown at how actually to fight an election. Now I think it has to be how you actually govern using social media. We at Demos are going to put out a report in the next 2 weeks with new research in it, showing that both using politics was a majority activity, using social media for politics was a majority activity, and the overwhelming people that did so actually felt closer to politics as a result. They felt more likely to vote. They said they knew the issues of the campaign better. They said they felt they're better able to express their views and more likely to be heard. The big question now is not for politicians, I think, to use social media to reach voters. It's actually to listen to voters on there. So to me, this is big data politics is one thing. Big data governance is the next big challenge for all of us. Thank you very much.